Just a moment. Right. Hi, everyone. My name is Dr. Sneha Aru. I'm a palliative physician and the founder of Ori Kalankini. Ori Kalankini is an organization that's changing narratives around menstruation and sexuality in India. These series of webinars are called Lean Into the Network. And on Saturdays, we specifically bring you people from our YCF community, that is Young Connectors of the Future. It's a program organized by Swedish Institute. So we bring alumni from YCF community for you to meet and get to know about what they do and especially what they're doing during COVID time. So today we have Mr. Sudhakaran, who is a YCF fellow from my batch 2018. He's from Bangalore and he is the founder of LonePack. So hi Siddharth, welcome to the show and thank you for agreeing.
Hello, Sneha. It's my pleasure to be with you and talk to your audience. And you've always been somebody whom I look up to in general and from my batch. I'm glad to collaborate with you on more such initiatives.
Thank you. So Siddharth, let's start with LonePack.
Sure.
What does LonePack do? What are the activities? And before even that, how did you come with the name LonePack?
Okay.
It always brings LonePack, right? Yeah.
Got it. I think it's a question that I get asked quite often. And to be honest, that wasn't a name that I came up with. Wouldn't take credit for that. One of my co-founders, her name was Samia Naseem. So she came with the idea that a lot of people who are going through mental health disorders, right? They feel that they're alone. But the statistics tell that there are a lot of people who are in the same bucket. And probably we have this, since we're the social stigma around coming out about having mental health disorder, a lot of people feel that they are unique, they're alone in this way. But we want to give them the feeling that, yes, you might be alone right now, you might not have a support system, but be aware that a lot of people around you are going through similar instances and that there's a pack around you. So we want to give them the sense that you might be alone in wherever you are, but we have a pack who's there to support you, not necessarily who's next to you, sort of this thing. That is the idea behind the term LonePack, I would think.
Thank you so much. Even when you speak about it, one is filled with, like I am filled with a sense of being supported and power, being powerful with regard to the mental challenges. What are the activities that LonePack does pre-COVID time? So before COVID, what was the general operation like?
Got it. I think before COVID, right? I would the what do you call the tagline of our nonprofit has always been to shatter the stigma. So a main aspect of it is for us to get the word out that mental health diseases. I mean, these are what mental health diseases are, and even this is such a thing as mental health exists. Because for a lot of people, when they hear the term health, they immediately think about physical health. They don't even consider the possibility that your mental health might be a component of your health. Of your health in general. So that, and also trying to provide access to people, especially you, who know that they have some requirement for their mental health to be treated, but they aren't aware of how they can seek help. For the first aspect, right, spreading awareness, we had like two primary avenues. One was online, where we used to do online campaigns on our social media platforms, and a large part of our campaigns were offline. So some of our campaigns would be to go to different colleges, conduct workshops, where we teach them about the basics of mental health and how they can take care of their own emotional and mental well-being. And apart from some innovative campaign that we were doing, like for instance, we had this campaign called LonePack Letters campaign. So the idea behind LonePack Letters was very simple. A lot of times when you start talking about mental health, right, our mind automatically switches off because there's such a strong taboo around it that the moment we hear mental health, I'm like, you might hear those words, but you don't listen to those words. So what we were thinking was, instead of addressing mental health through this tabooed lens, can we start that conversation through something that we are happy about, some positive emotion? And that's when one of my co-founders realized that nowadays we don't get physical letters, right? Every time we get a physical letter, we will like, it gives us a small sense of joy. So we try to use that emotion and that nostalgia to drive the conversation around mental health. So what we did was, when we went to different places, asked people, hey, can you write a small letter to a random person to put a smile on his or her face? We collect these letters, put them in an envelope along with a note which says why mental health is important, especially in the Indian context, and how we can each take care of the mental health of people around us. And through that campaign, we've been doing it for around 4 years now. And we've been able to reach out to around 100,000 people across these 4 years through this LonePack Letters campaign. So a lot of it was, I would say, offline and online media, but primarily a lot of our awareness campaigns was offline because that's why we felt our we could impact them and strike them where people would take notice.
Thank you. It was very interesting to listen to this. Also, you had because last conversation we had, you also mentioned about your tie-up with Uber, and
Yeah,
could
yeah.
you speak a little bit about that? How you leveraged even the corporate world to
Yeah, sure, sure.
help?
So I think during the Loan Pack Letters campaign, right, one of the things that we realized was during the first campaign, I believe we were able to collect some around 1,500 letters, I believe. But to be honest, we weren't very effective in distributing those letters. So we just used to go to beaches, roads, malls, just keep distributing letters to people. But to be very honest, like I wouldn't say it was the most effective because one, we were constrained by the number of volunteers we had, and secondly, there's a level of trust factor that exists. Like if you see a random person on the street trying to give you something, your immediate thought would be, okay, he's trying to solicit donations from you or something like that, right? And that itself made a lot of people apprehensive about reaching out and collecting those letters from us. So it was kind of odd because a lot of people were like, no, I don't have anything to give. We're like, we don't want you to give anything. We're just like giving you something else. So that factor was something that we figured out. So we were looking at, can we look at alternative distribution? Like we still do these times where we go out and distribute these letters. But we were thinking, can we make it a bit more easy on us and also make sure that the letters get sent out to people who are more receptive to receive them, right? And then we thought that, okay, like, who do people trust? Like, people trust like these, let's say, who do people trust to receive something from? Like, and then it struck our mind, we are okay with our e-commerce deliveries, our food deliveries, etc. We trust them to give something because we have the trust built over some time. So we approached different companies, and finally Uber Eats found some interest in our idea. So what we did was we gave them a set number of letters in their different distribution centers in Bangalore and Chennai, and along with the food delivery, they would send out these letters. So that is one aspect that we found a rather nice way to send out these letters, and it also helped us to expand to more cities because after the success of Uber Eats initiative in Chennai, we were also asked to do it in Kochi and Thiruvananthapuram and Bangalore. So that is a very interesting collaboration. And like you said, working with the corporate was a different ball game for us as well to learn how it works, etc.
Yeah, and who wouldn't like to receive letters along with their food? I mean, I've not been a recipient as such, but I imagine it will be really good. And also, what I like about your initiative, Siddharth, is that you're meeting both different classes of people, like, people on the beach who might not have access to Uber Eats, and then a
Yeah.
different set of people who are stressed and, who've lost connection with people and trust in people. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
True, true.
all the section of society almost is touched upon. Um, Now coming to the present time, the pandemic time, as an expert, as a person who's been involved in mental health for quite a while, what do you think other challenges are of the lockdown itself,
Got it,
along with
got
the
it,
anxiety around the spread of the disease and mortality and things like that? Do you have
got
any
it.
idea on that?
Got it, got it. I think so. The quarantine aspect of the entire COVID-19 situation, right, and the accompanying mental health challenges, I feel they haven't been emphasized enough, or in the sense that people haven't paid as much attention to the mental health aspect of people under quarantine as they have to, let's say, the viral aspect of the disease spreading itself. Just for an example, right? So the most what do you call that? Recent example of a wide intense quarantine that we have is a SARS quarantine that happened sometime during the last decade, right? And there were a set of studies that were conducted on specific countries and regions which had enforced strict quarantines due to SARS, mostly in East Asia. And what they found was actually very, I would say, something that we need to cause of concern. So, for instance, one of the studies found that close to 28% of the people who they studied who were under the quarantine, right, they showed symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder, and close to 31% showed signs of depression. So if you think about it, right, like 1 in 3 people who were in quarantine in a somewhat limited form, not as global as it is right now, still face significant amounts of mental health disorders, including PTSD and depression. And when you extrapolate that and think about it from the fact that close to 4 billion people, more than 60% of the population right now, is under some form of quarantine. And in a lot of countries, especially in India, it's a very probably the strictest level of quality that's been enforced in like several decades. It's very easy to estimate as to the high number of mental health disorders that may arise from this. And especially in a country like India, it's a lot more, I would say, graded, the effect of the quality on the mental health of people, depending upon where in the social pyramid you stand. For instance, if you were, let's say, a daily wage laborer who does not have access to immediate money to satisfy their needs and who can't reach their family because they're stuck in a separate state and are facing a lot of oppression from, let's say, the police who are trying to send you back home, etc. It's almost unimaginable the kind of stresses that they're going through, right? The very fact that people are risking it all and traveling on foot sometimes for such long distances to reach their family, it shows two things. One thing is that people are desperate to get to a source of comfort, a source of stability, and also the entire journey itself, right? These are not something that would happen in normal times. There's a very high possibility that these people would face PTSD, that these people would face significant signs of distress, etc. And another aspect of it is domestic violence, right? Sadly, it's been the case that wherever the lockdown has been enforced, the incidence of domestic violence has drastically increased. We don't have very accurate numbers for India since the what you call domestic violence, as you might know, isn't widely reported. But if you look at the numbers from other countries, like let's say the UK or the US or most other Western nations, or even nations closer home like South Korea, domestic violence cases have drastically increased, in some cases even tripled from what they were prior to quarantine. And this, and since the victims of domestic violence are very often women, that exerts a significant mental health toll on them as well. Uh, and last but not least, right, this also is a very difficult time for people who are going through what some form of substance addiction, since they are, like, think about it this way, right? Like imagine you are a recovering alcoholic, you would still be like exposed to small amounts of alcohol so that you don't slip into kind of a nervous breakdown. But on the stroke of midnight for the next 1 month, you don't have any access to it. So it's a lot of I would say a very difficult situation with regards to the mental health for a lot of different people. And honestly, I think it's getting, nobody's paying serious. They are paying attention to it, but I'm not sure if we are paying enough attention to it. Some really good, great initiatives are being done by different state governments, but still, I think there's a huge, potential that this might become a mental health crisis that we aren't prepared for.
Right. Thank you so much for bringing aspects from different strata of the society in place, and also talking about the state government efforts. Um, so, how has LonePack adapted to the situation? So, from your side, because you've already
Well,
always worked for the mental health of the people, so what initiatives have you taken for this time specifically, which might extend later, but started now?
good. I think for the first week or so, to be very honest, like we weren't able to work too well. Our own team members, all of us are volunteers, right? So they were trying to get used to the work from home situation in their respective lives. So it took a while for us to take pace and get to some semblance of routine. But I think 1 week in, we had this conversation where we had a team meeting just to like discuss and hear each other out, because some of our team members, they were stuck alone. Like for instance, one of the person who heads our people ops, he has been stuck in his own house for close to like um, 50 days now, I guess. But at that time, he was like literally getting extremely paranoid because of the fact that he was stuck alone. He hadn't had any human interaction for a long time. And we were just like hearing each other out and trying to provide some sort of a mechanism for people to feel connected, right? And that's when we realized that, all right, so yeah, the situation is pretty bad, but what can we do? We realized that a lot of our on the ground activities could no longer happen. So, for instance, we had this idea of having a series of mental health workshops focusing on mental health through a gendered lens in various colleges in Bangalore, right? About how the aspect of gender plays a role in your mental health as such. But all those had to be shelved, and we were wondering, all right, what can we do? And first idea that struck us was that yes, a lot of people who are going to be there who are under quarantine who just want someone to talk to. It could be, and it's not necessarily be somebody they know. It's just some human interaction, right? And so we had this concept of this LonePack tea rooms that we came about with, where it was just like a curated session where we'll have a announced saying that it's going to be about a particular topic, like let's say movies or sports or social issues or something. We'll just put it up, and people who are interested can sign up. And then we'll just have like a tea room conversation with 5 or 6 people on Zoom where they can just like talk it out, and we received some really good feedback from that. That was one such initiative. I think another was we had this concept called the Lone Pack Buddy concept, which was running before, right? But it was more of a pilot, and it was like completely email based. So Lone Pack Buddies basically is that we train volunteers to be empathetic listeners, and a person who wants someone to talk to can chat with them through email. There was a pilot that we did, and it was, to be honest, it was like rotting there for 2 years because nobody took time to like build it up. And then we realized that, all right, we have a situation where people are in need of someone to talk to. Can we just like work on this and get this out? So we set up some time on war footing, and we came up with this, reach out to different organizations to fine tune our course. And we developed an online course which can be used to train volunteers to be empathetic listeners, especially tailored to an Indian context, right? Like, for instance, there are a lot of courses that are there available free of cost online as well. But at the same time, it's not very India specific. Like, for instance, caste is something that's a huge thing. It's very India specific, right? Like a lot of people have their mental health issues due to their the caste hierarchy, etc. So we try to find it into the Indian context, got it reviewed by different people, and made it an e-learning course, and also set up a way where we can do tests on the volunteers and like create simulated conversations and evaluate them online whether they're ready to be put on the platform or not. Another thing that we did was to rapidly create a website where you can go in, create an account, and immediately go and chat with a volunteer on real time. And the key things that we kept in mind with developing this website, right, was that it should be accessible to anybody, even on a 2G phone. It should not be such that takes too much bandwidth or something like that. It should be very easily accessible, very simple English to access, and no fancy what you call login requirements required. It either takes a mail or your phone number. So those are the things that we kept in mind, and I think we surprised ourselves by the fact that we were able to launch it around 2 to 3 weeks back. And so far, the feedback has been really good. We've enabled close to 200 to 300 conversations so far. And we've received a lot of interest for more people to be onboarded to as volunteers as well. So that is something that we see as a positive sign. But again, there's a lot that needs to be done, right? So just for instance, right now, all the conversations, all the course, the listeners, everything's in English, right? Um, how much of it, how much of our population knows some level of English to communicate that? Like, um, so lots more needs to be done to make sure that it's more accessible. But we're just happy that we're able to get one version out, and we can iteratively work on that. And to me, one more thing that we have done is kind of created something called the Lone Pack Nuggets, which we had a mailing list of people with whom we usually send newsletters, right? And so some of the people were just like visiting us on Instagram, stating that, hey, it's just so nice to see some of the words in your Instagram feed because I really need this right now. So you were just thinking, can we just we have these people on a mailing list. Can we just create like send them mails every single day about some positive thing that we can talk about, something to just like put some hope, some joy into their lives, right? That's when we created this concept called Lone Pack Nuggets, where we give like short, small things that, like just to tell people to keep it going, to keep their hopes up high. So those are some of the initiatives that we have done. And yeah, so that's why how we've been trying to pivot towards more of an online based approach to a lot of things. Since in the current scenario, we can't do much, right?
Right. Thank you. And from what you're saying, what inspires me is that your work starts right at home with your team. So, many companies are doing amazing, great work outside, but then their teammates are suffering. So, your practice and your policy is applied
Yeah, yeah.
deserves a lot of respect. And it was good to know about your online training modules, and I request our viewers, our listeners, even in the podcast, to check this out, because it might be, you educating yourself might be of use to your near and dear one. So please do check it out.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that you're from the background of technology,
Mhm.
and we've heard so much around the banes of technology and the boons of technology. Though in your previous question you have mentioned all the online based solutions, and world itself is going globally online. So what are the challenges with respect to mental health you see in this? Like, there is many positive sides. For example, I am attending writers workshops which are held in New York right now. So the people I work with, the voices I listen to, I get to listen to African American people and their challenges. So
Mhm.
literally, there's a lot good happening also. But can you talk a little about what are the challenges we might not foresee now, but which
Got
will
it. Got it.
catch up sooner or later?
Got it. Got it. I think it's not even about not forcing now. I think technology has become a huge challenge to mental health even right now, right? Just to give a very small example, right? But some of the studies that they found out is that usage of Instagram, and I mean not just Instagram, right? Like tools like social media, like Facebook or Twitter, whatever. People, dis- accounting for all other variables, they showed a significant decline in their mental state of being before and after going through the social media tools. Another thing that was even more interesting was that oftentimes we associate our level of happiness with the amount of material wealth we have. So this was interesting was that the amount of time you spent on Instagram had a 2x as detrimental an effect to your mental health as doubling your income had to improving your mental health. So let's say if you're earning 40, like I don't know, X, and you started earning 2x, the amount of increase in happiness you felt due to that would be quite more than removed by using social media. So it's that impactful in your mental health in a detrimental manner. And a large part of that is due to the fact that we post very curated content on social media. So let's just take my own instance. I'm only going to post, let's say on LinkedIn, I'm only going to post my success stories. I've got this internship. I've got, I don't know, whatever. I'm not going to post about this 10 fellowships I applied to and didn't get in. I'm not going to post about all those exams I failed in, right? But when you're reading through it, no, without, or even if you're aware of the fact that people are posting curated stories, but if you still read through it, your brain immediately assumes that this is the baseline, that this is how people are functioning as an on average, right? And it tends to compare your real self to the curated stories you see on Instagram or LinkedIn or Facebook, and makes you feel bad about yourself. So that's, I think, a very sad reality we live in. And honestly, I don't think any amount of tinkering with how these tools work would significantly change that, because the base of it is due to the inherent, very human fact that we don't like to post stories that are not our best states, right? So it's a very serious challenge, just to mention what you were saying.
Yeah. Thank you, Siddharth. Um, Siddharth has always been, even personally for me, from the batch, one person who always checks on my mental health. And I did mention to him also a few days ago that thanks for doing that, for walking your talk, and how it's not only work, it's not only his business, but it's also his practice in life. So thank you, Siddharth. It's really good to meet you. And I'm thanking YCF also for getting us, getting to know each other. Do you want to say anything, last few words when you're leaving the webinar? I think
Sure, sure. I think if anyone's listening, right, just make sure that during this mental health crisis, you do not be too harsh on yourself on the levels of productivity or the levels of social interaction or anything that you are expected to do. the fact is that the world we live in right now isn't the world we were inhabiting, let's say 1 month or even 2 months back. And it's honestly, unfair to expect yourself to be as productive or as socially active or as friendly or whatever as you were in that period of time. So give yourself a break. Don't force yourself to be the same you as you were the previous times. And what I would suggest is like, just take care of the people around you, right? Like a lot of times, what I've seen is that especially in situations like this where there's a lot of negative news floating around, where there's a lot of um, bad news in general, right? There's a lot of things that you cannot control. Like a lot of things is beyond your control, irrespective of how activist you might be. And at times, it is always better for your own mental health to kind of let go of things that are beyond your control, right? Like, I know that it's very, very saddening to see some of the news that's happening right now, but my concern is that a lot of activists like us, right, especially, we tend to get worked up a lot. But the sad fact is there's very little that we can do in the current situation due to the lockdown, due to how people are functioning, etc. So perhaps for the remainder of the lockdown, it might make us all a bit better mentally if we just fine tune the amount of information that we receive and focus only on things that we have control over. And if possible, if you are in a good mental state yourself, try to check in on others whom you know, whom you love, and who you know might be alone or might be stuck somewhere or might be at your own home for all you know. Just check on them every possible time that you get a chance, and see that small token of appreciation they might possibly forward to somebody else and get a good feedback loop over there. And just before, one more thing I like to add is hugely proud to have known you and worked with you, Neha. I think you're doing some amazing work with Oracle Company, and especially the recent initiative that you've been doing on menstrual health for women. Um, I know that there are going to be a lot of challenges during this lockdown and going forward as well, especially considering that the inherent way that the lockdown, I would say, disprivileges women in a way in India. All the best for it. And if there's any help that I can do or anybody in the network can do, just like let us know, and we'd love to help out.
Thank you, Siddharth. Thank you so much. And really thanks for being on this call. Bye.
So,
Take care. Yeah.
bye bye. Have a great day. Thank you.